Super Mario Maker is just around the corner, and Nintendo recently released an overview trailer showcasing a few final new features. So you know what that means, it's time to press start in the old analysis machine to see what secrets the trailer is hiding. And first up is the fact that we finally learned what the frog icon actually does. And that is, it opens a brand new sound effects menu, which allows you to drag and drop different sound effects into the level that play when triggered. And some of those sound effects go a little bit further than the rest, triggering special effects too. Now based on the trailer, we can see there are two main ways in which to trigger an effect. For one, if you place a sound effect on a tile by itself, you simply have to pass through it for it to trigger. But if you place the sound effect on an existing object, it'll appear a bit smaller as if it's sunk into the object. And that indicates that you'll have to interact with the object in some way to trigger the effect. As shown here, where hitting the blocks activates the audience and confetti effects. Similarly, if we freeze this scene at the start, we can see the platforms here have all been given a firework effect too. But in order to trigger these ones, you'll actually have to land on the platform itself instead of just passing through it. As we can see here, where the firework doesn't launch until Mario actually touches a platform. Now in the editor, we can see each platform only has a single sound effect attached to it, and it's always in the middle. So you might only be able to attach one sound effect to each object, regardless of how big it is. Now interestingly, it does appear they can trigger the same effect more than once, as we can see 3 fireworks here, despite only 2 sound effect blocks being placed. Now in the trailer, we can see 14 sound effect icons in the menu bar at the top of the screen. And we're pretty sure that's a final count, because there's no arrow to cycle through different submenus as there are with the primary objects, so 14 is probably it. Well, maybe, but more on that later. So let's take a look at what those 14 effects are, or could be. And thankfully, to make things a little bit easier on us, the trailer actually shows off a few of them in the editor itself, such as the cartoon explosion here, which triggers the fireworks we've been talking about. Then the clapping hands here activate an applause noise and confetti. And then we have this caution sign, which shows boulders rolling down a mountainside. And for good reason, because this effect triggers an earthquake with an accompanying rumbling sound that shakes both the level and background independently while rocks drop in from above. Okay, and that covers it for all the actual icons we can see placed in the editor itself. Except for one, this guy right here, which kinda looks like a hand fan. But oddly, that icon doesn't match any of the ones above. So what's the deal? Well, we do have one idea, although it might be a little far out there. Okay, so hand fans are often associated with Japanese culture. So could it be related to the icon right here, which itself resembles a Japanese no mask? After all, these masks are often used alongside hand fans in Japan for dance-based performances. And adding to this theory is that that icon is what triggers a dance party in the trailer, that comes complete with music and lights. Okay, so maybe that music isn't the usual no style. But we can't help but wonder if you're able to shake the sound effect blocks to create an alternate version, like you can in most of the other objects in the game. So assuming this is the case, the no mask might cause an effect that's a little bit more traditional, whereas a dance party could be the alternate form. Again, this could be a stretch, but it's the best we've got. And if we're right, this could mean that while there might only be 14 icons, if each one has an alternate version, that could make for 28 different sound effects in total. Or 26 if you discount the bird, because that one's a bit of a special case. But more on him in a bit. So that covers it for all the effects shown while in editing mode. But there is one more scene that reveals a few more sound effects in action, such as the creepy baby face that appears right here. Now that face might look a little bit familiar to you, because it also appeared in Mario Paint as a stamp and in the Music Composer, where it was similarly used as a musical note. We can also see a rainbow appear at a couple of different points, although we have no clue which of the 14 icons it might correspond to. And the same thing goes for this weird cloud of smoke thing that appears repeatedly throughout the sequence. But you know what? After staring at it for long enough, I think I figured out what it is. Well, either that or I'm seeing things. But I'm pretty sure that's not smoke. Instead, it's actually a cat's paw. Look, there's its arm, and you can see the individual digits on its paw, including the dew claw on the side. And yes, I'd have to look up what that thing was called before this video. And it looks like that paw is actually swatting at Mario, as cats are known to do. You can even see a cartoon explosion appearing at the point of impact. And because of that swatting action, we think the cat's paw might be related to the pain-faced icon up here. But how? Because that face is basically the same face that the giant wasp makes in Mario Paint's fly swatting game whenever you swat him. Look, it even makes the same cartoonish explosion at the point of impact. Yeah, this too might seem like a stretch, but it would make sense given all the other Mario Paint connections already in the game. After all, the freaking frog that you click to access the sound effects is also taken right from Mario Paint's composer mode. And then there's the fact that the song that plays in the background of this clip is also the Mario Paint theme. Now unfortunately, that's basically all the sound effects that we've seen in action so far, which leaves the rest of the bunch as a complete mystery, such as a shoe, boxing glove, maracas, lips, a light bulb, phone, Bowser's head, and a purple heart. Now granted, several of those might make some pretty obvious sounds. The phone, for instance, probably rings. But what could their animations be? Your guess is as good as ours, but do keep in mind that according to the trailer, not every sound effect will necessarily have an animation. At any rate, we do have a few final ideas about some of those icons. That purple heart, for example, does look pretty similar to the one in Mario Paint's composer after all. Only then it was red and functioned like a bass instrument. Which we kinda doubt is the case here, because it would probably just use an instrument as an icon. So maybe it'll make a heartbeat sound or something. And then we have the light bulb, which given the fact that it produces light, could mean that this is actually what causes the dance party that we mentioned earlier. Although I do have to admit that I like our convoluted no mask idea a lot better. Finally, we have Bowser's head, and we can't help but wonder if it might trigger Bowser's evil laugh. It could make those castle stages even more menacing. Kinda like when you die in Mario 64. Now there is still one more sound effect we haven't mentioned yet, and that's a bird at the very end. And we haven't mentioned him yet because he seems to function a little differently than the rest. And that's because that bird is tied directly into the game's new recording feature, which allows you to add your own voice or sound effects to the game using the gamepad's microphone. So basically, once you tap the recording icon beneath the frog, the bird will fly in from his icon and listen to what you say. Oh, and we timed how long that bird seems to be listening for, and that came out to about 3 seconds. So yeah, looks like you can add 3-second recordings to your level. Now at first, having both a record button and the bird icon might seem redundant. After all, couldn't Nintendo have just made it so you tap the bird to start recording to streamline the entire process? But we have a feeling it was done this way so you can make one recording, and then add it to the same level multiple times. That is how all the rest of the sound effects work after all, so it makes sense. Now, even though we see them make the recording in the video, we don't actually see them place a bird in the level itself. But we can still see where exactly they placed it, because the bird appears at that same spot when triggered, causing the happy birthday sound to play. Oh, and real quick, did you catch that the structure to the right here is actually a birthday cake, complete with candles? That's pretty cute. But to get back to the bird, it looks like it might be limited to just one recording for that bird. Because check this out, if we look close, we can see an exclamation mark next to the bird itself, which might indicate that you've already recorded something for it to say. Particularly as another clip features that same bird without the exclamation mark, likely meaning it hasn't been recorded to yet. Although, that might not mean they can only have one recording per level, because if we slow this clip down, we can just barely see a bird appear here in the exact same way as the first one. Except this one looks a little bit different, being smaller and yellow. So getting back to our shaking idea, maybe you can shake the green bird to turn him into a second yellow bird, thereby giving you a second recording too. Okay, so that finally covers it for all the sound effects, but let's talk about the music created for this scene a little bit more. Now that music was actually created in the level itself, thanks to the new music blocks. And you create music blocks by shaking note blocks. And the sound those music blocks make changes depending on how high off the ground they are. So if you're musically inclined, you can string a bunch of them together at different heights to create music if they're activated at the right time. Now if you watch the trailer, this probably isn't news to you, but there are a couple more things about them that you may not have noticed, such as how little music notes pop out whenever you touch one of them. But beyond that, check out what happens if a whole bunch of notes are activated at the exact same time. Did you catch it? Let's try that again, and I'll freeze it right when they're all activated. As you can see, it actually causes the screen to briefly glitch out. Kinda weird, huh? Alright, we're just about done here, but there's still one more thing we haven't talked about yet, and that's the fact that not every object nor theme will be available to you at the start of the game. Instead, according to the trailer, you'll have to play a few minutes a day in order to unlock a shipment that will arrive the following day containing more elements to play with. And it's going to take a full 9 days to unlock everything you see on the screen right now. That is assuming that you play every day. Now, although the trailer does provide a breakdown of what objects you'll get each day, it's not entirely clear how many you'll actually start the game with, since the trailer only starts at day 2. But, as you might have noticed, all the objects in the second row have exclamation marks next to them, which indicates that they're brand new. So knowing that means that row 1 here is all you'll start the game with. But what's kinda cool is, besides missing just a few objects, that's the exact same lineup of objects when the game was first shown at E3 2014. Okay, now I know what you're wondering. If the exclamation mark means that the objects here are new, shouldn't that mean the same thing for the one by the bird icon too? And yeah, it could. So maybe it's possible you have to unlock the sound effects one by one too, and the bird just happened to be the last one. Although, the exclamation mark by the bird actually looks a bit different. Although maybe that's just what happens after you interact with the new object once, and it stays that way for the remainder of the day. And with that, we're done covering everything we can dig up on the new Super Mario Maker trailer. But as usual, let us know if we missed anything by posting in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Super Mario Maker very soon, and other things gaming too.